Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And congratulations to the U.S. Army and GSA for bringing Democrats and Republicans together here in the Congress. You know, listening to the story, our U.S. Army does such a wonderful job in logistics. It runs overseas bases. It runs big bases like Fort Belvoir in my district here at home. Millions of people process. We fight wars. We deploy troops. We engage in peacekeeping missions. We run commissaries. But child care is beyond us. And relatively speaking, the numbers are small compared to the other missions and tasks the Army and GSA face. And it passeth understanding how we could have arrived at this point. Nobody obviously intended to do harm to the program, but decisions were made that had consequences. Consequences on real people. You're a parent, and you have to work. There is nothing more sacred than the care of your child. And when you entrust to any entity, an individual caregiver or an institutional caregiver, your child, we in the public sector have a sacred obligation to do the very best we can for that child and that family. Ms. Haney, what in the world possessed us to decide to change a program that was working and go at GSA? Why did we decide that?
Sir, according to the documentation.
I'm going to ask everyone to speak into the mic like I'm doing, because it's hard to hear you sometimes.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
According to the documentation at the time the decision was made back in August of 2013, fiscal pressures were causing the Army to look everywhere for ways to gain efficiencies and save money.
You thought you'd save money.
Yes, sir.
How'd that work out for us?
Not so good.
How come?
We did not do our due diligence in inspecting the capability of GSA to take on an expansion of the program. We did not communicate effectively with each other. GSA didn't let us know they weren't ready. We didn't go in and check and make sure they were ready. And that put us on our back foot at the outside of the program.
Mr. Badoric, so they didn't do their due diligence, but GSA made a representation to the Army that it was capable of undertaking this task. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Speak in.
Yes, that is correct.
And you got it wrong, too.
GSA got it wrong, yes, absolutely.
How did that happen?
GSA got it wrong.
Again, I'm going to ask you to speak into the mic. I can't hear you.
Okay. GSA underestimated the level of effort. They looked at the level of effort it was taking to support child care and families with the federal daycare centers. They underestimated the effort it would take to support 6,000 providers. They underestimated the system needs and complexity, and the $4 million that we agreed to do with Army was too low.
I'm focused on the backlog. I think I'm correct that there's a backlog, or was a backlog, of about 9,000. Is that correct?
The backlog of invoices, or the backlog
of invoices?
Yes, there's about 8,000.
8,000. What's the average invoice for?
Average invoice is a little over $300.
$300. Is that the average monthly cost to put a child in child care in the program?
It's per child, yes. The invoice
per child, per month.
Yeah.
Per month. So, I don't know. What's the salary, do you think, of the average client in the program? Monthly salary that the U.S. Army pays?
I have no idea.
Ms. Deitches, can you give us a round ballpark figure? Not necessarily yourself, but people you know.
Ballpark figure?
Yeah.
Mr. Congressman.
They're making $30,000 a month?
No, no.
Oh, no, no. What are they making?
Probably $2,000 to $3,000, sir.
$2,000 to $3,000.
Yes, sir.
So if I haven't been reimbursed for my $300 monthly child care, and maybe I have 2 kids, so my cost is more than $300. From a cash flow point of view, for an active duty service member, that's a hardship.
Yes. definitely.
GSA aware of the urgency of the need to reimburse men and women in uniform for their child care?
Yes, we are.
So how in the world did you end up with a backlog of at least 8,000?
Yes. We receive
Not enough people working at GSA?
we receive 12,000 invoices a month. We have about 35% that air out for some kind of
I
reason.
still can't hear you, Mr. Medord.
We receive 12,000 invoices a month. We have roughly 30%, 35% that air out. I believe we're too stringent in ensuring that the amounts were precise. We have fixed that going forward.
Well, it's commendable. It's obviously commendable to verify,
Yes.
so that we're not wasting taxpayer dollars. But it's also critical that the families we're trying to serve are served in a timely fashion so that they're not experiencing a cash flow squeeze. One would think that would be a priority, both for the Army and for GSA. But we're not talking about people who are, getting rich like Donald Trump in service to their country. These are men and women who are making sacrifices for their country at kind of modest compensation, but who nonetheless have family obligations that need to be met. And it seems to me that in that sacred obligation we've got to kids, to men and women in the uniform, we also have part of that by extension is, and they be reimbursed in a timely and efficient manner. Would you not agree, Mr. Podorek?
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.